Hey guys, what's going on? James here, and in this video today, we're going to be talking about how the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have signed 10 players to future contracts to start off the Buccaneers 2022 offseason. If you guys are new here, go ahead and subscribe. Hit the like button if you do enjoy these types of videos, and leave your thoughts and opinions on some of these players and what they may or may not be able to do for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers down in the comments section below. It would be good to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions. Now, all of these guys were on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers practice squad, but you know what? I do consider these as the first off-season signings, if you will, for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and there are a couple of names that I have listed down here that I think could do some pretty interesting things, so I definitely think it is worth talking about. And let's go ahead and talk about the first name, right? Kicker Jose Borregales. He was with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers practice squad throughout the entirety of the regular season, and he was actually with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers throughout the entirety of training camp. He came to the Bucs as an undrafted free agent kicker, and man oh man, Borregales actually did some really good stuff for the Buccaneers in training camp and in the preseason as well. As one of the reasons as to why he was on the Bucs practice squad throughout the entirety of this season. I very rarely remember seeing Borregales missing any of his kicks, if any. I think he might have legitimately made all of his kicks in training camp and in preseason. He might have missed one that I might not be remembering. But this is going to be interesting, right? Because Ryan Succop, I don't think Ryan Succop had a bad year this year. I think that overall Ryan Succop was a solid, capable kicker for this team. But it's still going to be interesting regardless to see what the heck happens and if there is a legitimate kicking battle here with Borregales and Ryan Succop for the second year in a row. And I don't think it's going to be a situation where the Bucs, bring Borregales in on a futures contract and then they decide a month or two from now, oh, okay, we're going to move on. Ryan Succop is going to be our kicker. No. I think that Jose Borregales is genuinely going to be some legitimate competition for Ryan Succop, and I think it's going to be a legitimate battle come next season here for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So that's one guy you definitely should be paying attention to, because I think Borregales is a very good kicker. I know a lot of people were very high on him when he was signed as an undrafted free agent last year. So thankfully he gets to stay with the team for another offseason, and we'll see if this generates any kind of, big training camp battle at the kicking position between Ryan Succop and Jose Borregales. The next player on this list is another special teams player, and he's also a running back. It is Kenyon Barner, and I think that Kenyon Barner is another guy like Jose Borregales that has a very interesting opportunity here, because you look at what Kenyon Barner provides, right? He is a running back and he is a special teams player, specifically a returner. And the Bucs have 3 running backs right now that have expiring contracts with Leonard, Fournette, with Ronald Jones, and Giovani Bernard. You assume they bring back at least one of those guys. There's still a chance for Barner to compete there at a backup running back position. And then at returner, the Buccaneers rotated a lot of guys this year. Well, not a lot, but a couple of guys, a pretty significant amount. You had Jaydon Mickens initially as the returner. I thought that he was personally doing a pretty darn good job. The Buccaneers then decided to take a risk and go with Jaylon Darden, a 4th-round draft pick in the most recent NFL draft for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the returning position. That didn't work out too well, to be honest. He actually did sustain a couple of injuries at some points and was placed on the illness list. That resulted in guys like Scotty Miller and Giovani Bernard getting chances at returner. They didn't necessarily do a good job in that role either. The Buccaneers went back to Jaylon Darden, and it still didn't do very well for the Bucs. Granted, there are a lot of factors that go into that. Jaylon Darden didn't necessarily have the best blocking at his disposal on punt returns and, even kickoff returns as well. But I still think it's going to be interesting to see. I think Barner is a good returner. I know some people have been impressed with him in the very limited chances that he has gotten with the Buccaneers, even, you know, as so much as this year as a returner, and I think it's going to be an interesting thing. You know, I really do. There's a reason the Buccaneers had him on the practice squad throughout the entirety, or for most of this regular season. He wasn't on there throughout the entirety of the year, but there is still a reason that the Buccaneers had him on there. He was a good insurance policy type guy at the returner position. Again, I know a lot of Bucs fans are confident in his returning abilities, myself included. And who knows, Barner might be an interesting name at the very least for a returner battle. And maybe even he can potentially carve out a role as a backup running back if things really go his way as well. So let's pay attention to Kenyon Barner. I think he is another guy who can stick on really throughout the entirety of training camp and the preseason as well, and really give a good position group battle at certain positions. So let's pay attention. Next is tight end Cody McElroy. He's a developmental tight end that was on the Buccaneers practice squad throughout the entirety of the year. O.J. Howard has an expiring contract. A lot of people are still going to talk about Cam Brate as a potential cap casualty. You know, Cody McElroy could have a potential role here in this Buccaneers offense. He definitely still needs to develop, you know, a lot, I think, as a tight end. He did not play a lot, if any, college football, if my memory serves me correctly. But he is big, athletic, strong. He can still make really good catches despite not playing a ton of football in his life, or I guess in his, you know, professional career, whatever you want to call it. And, yeah, who knows? This will be interesting. It honestly reminds me a lot of Tanner Hudson. Maybe he can carve out a similar role as to what Tanner Hudson had, which was kind of being a guy that floats around on the practice squad, makes some good plays here or there in the preseason, and just continues to develop. So that's kind of where I think Cody McElroy is at. We'll see what happens there. John Molchon is the next guy on this list. They had him listed as an offensive guard, but to be honest, John Molchon has played all positions on the offensive line: tackle, guard, center, you name it. Molchon has been able to go out there and really do some good stuff. And this one's going to be interesting as well. I know I say this for all these guys. James is the eternal optimistic, but John Molchon, the Buccaneers coaching staff really like his versatility, and they really like the overall development that he has been able to have so far with the Buccaneers. He's a guy that I think is going to give a legitimate battle at multiple backup offensive line positions. You know, Alex Kappa potentially might leave in free agency. Of course, Aaron Stinney could slot in as the starting guard if that does happen, but you could also have John Molchon as a backup as well, rotating in, you know, at, say, right guard, left guard, right tackle, wherever you need to put John Molchon. I think he is going to be able to come in and compete and overall do a very good job. So, again, another really good developmental guy who I think has the ability to really stick on as a solid backup for this Buccaneers team. I've been very happy with John Molchon so far. Of course, I'm a little biased because he's a friend of the channel, but hey, you know, I do think the Buccaneers coaching staff likes him a lot as well. Next is outside linebacker Elijah Ponder. He was with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers practice squad for most of this season. He is a developmental pass rusher. He has been able to flash some good abilities here or there. He'll probably be competing with guys like Cam Gill, among others, for maybe a 4th or 5th edge rusher backup spot, depending on what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers do throughout the entirety of the offseason. Similar things can be said for guys like Benning Pote, another guy who was with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last season, much like everybody we have already mentioned so far. He was with the Buccaneers in offseason. He was with the Buccaneers in training camp. He was with them for most of the regular season on the practice squad. He's going to be another guy who's going to compete. Same thing with Kobe Smith. Same exact situation there. Those guys are going to be competing for backup defensive lineman spots. And also, Will Prevlian, I believe that's how you say his last name. Will Prevlian was with the Green Bay Packers in 2020. He's been on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers practice squad since October. He will also be competing with guys like Pat O'Connor, who does have an expiring contract, but they may bring him back. Those three guys, Benning Pote, Will Prevlian, and Kobe Smith, will all be competing for backup defensive lineman jobs. Finally, folks, the last two, cornerback Rashard Robinson, who I think is going to compete for special teams play. He is listed as a cornerback. That is what he is going to play, but I think his main role will be on special teams. I think the Buccaneers are going to have a pretty significant need at punt coverage. I think that's a huge thing to take care of this offseason, and as well as punt gunners. They need to get better at those groups on their special teams unit. Enter a guy like Rashard Robinson, who has plenty of experience in both of those roles, and I think he will be competing competing for those roles. Similar thing can be said for the last guy on this list, Troy Warner, safety. Brother of Fred Warner, by the way, who's going to be playing for the 49ers in the NFC Championship game. He's going to be a guy who's going to be competing for a backup safety job and mainly special teams play with Rashard Robinson. So we'll see how both those young guys do. There may be an opening or two in the secondary depending on what happens with free agency in the offseason, so they may compete for those roles as well. But ultimately, I think it is going to be, boiled down to special teams play and having these guys try and compete for punt gunner jobs as well as punt coverage jobs as well. So we will see. But yeah, folks, that's it for the 10 players the Buccaneers have signed to futures contracts. A lot of interesting names on there, in my opinion. Again, you look at guys like Jose Borregales, Kenyon Barner, John Molchon, Rashard Robinson, and Troy Warner. Those are guys that I definitely think are going to bring legitimate competition at certain position groups for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And again, you don't want to count out guys like Cody McElroy, Elijah Ponder, Benning Pote, Will Presley, and Kobe Smith, because, guys are going to be leaving in free agency, and there may be some legitimate opportunities there for them to compete as well. So let's pay attention to all 10 of these guys as the first 10, I guess you want to say, official signings of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offseason. So what do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts and opinions about all of these signings down in the comments section below. And what do you think their roles and situations may be going forward here? Again, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.